Okay, good morning. Let us start. Is the screen is visible? Okay, fine. So last class we have discussed about various crossover techniques. So with that we'll be stop discussing crossover techniques. Now we'll be moving on to the next GA operation. So we are discussing basically various GA operations. We started with encoding. So encoding is used to generate the initial population, and then we discussed how to evaluate the fitness score, and then we have discussed how to how crossover is done. So now we'll be discussing the remaining what you call reproduction techniques. These are uh, mutation and inversion. So this is what we'll be discussing in this lecture. So all these are the various GA operations: encoding, fitness, evaluation and selection, mating pool. So these three things we have already discussed, and in the last two lectures we are discussing about crossover. So this is also done. So in today's lecture these things we'll be discussing: mutation and inversion. In the first part we'll be discussing this mutation and inversion, and then we'll be moving on to the next topic. Okay. So the convergence test, there is nothing detailed about that. We'll be discussing briefly how convergence is done. Right. So these are the objectives. So we are going to discuss all these things: mutation, inversion, convergence test, and fitness scaling. This fitness scaling is it helps to move the problem, or it helps to move the solution from local optimal to global optimal. Sometimes the problem will get stuck in local optima. So then there is a way to move the what you call the possible solutions from local maxima to global maxima, or local optimal to global optimal range. So that is called as fitness scale. We'll be discussing uh, about this also, right? So to start with, first of all, what is mutation? So let us try to understand what is mutation from genetical point of view. So from the point of view of genetic algorithm, mutation means, make it full screen. Yeah, mutation means, say for example, there is a parent chromosome P1. Okay, it is something like this. So this is the feature of the parent P1. It is these lines. Okay, and there is another parent P2. It is, say, something like this. It is, say, checked. Now say that you are selecting some crossover point. Say this is the crossover point. Say let us assume the middle point as the crossover. Now the child 1 is created, something like this. That is, its first part comes from parent 1, and the second part comes from parent 2. So it is something like this. Okay, so this is an ideal case. This is an ideal case. It is a perfect crossover. Okay, but assume that another child, the second child, is created something like this, where the first part comes from the parent 2. So that part is checked. The second part is supposed to come from parent 1. Okay, but say that the second part, this end is coming properly from parent 1 properly, but in between, say this part, it got damaged, or the cells got replaced, something happened, so this chromosome structure has changed. So then this part we will call it as mutation. So this we will say that this is a muted gene, or a muted chromosome. Okay, so this actually happens in genetics also. So why this damage happens means, it may be for any reason. Okay, it may be maybe based on the physical health of the parent, or whatever it may be the reason. Okay, so it is not only this, it like this so mutation means generally the change in the chromosome which is getting inherited from the parent. Generally it is expected that the chromosome should come as it is from the parent to the child, but it don't happen that way. At least some part of the chromosome of the offspring or the child will be different, so those part are called as muted or mutated. Okay, it's not muted, those part are called as mutated. Okay, so this is what is called as mutation. Okay, so sometimes what may happen, so this is basically whenever a crossover is happening, the genes are getting copied. Some part of the genes are copied from parent 1 to child, and some part are copied from parent 2 to child. So this copying process may go wrong, like how technically when you copy some content from one place to another place in a computer, sometimes due to hardware malfunction or software malfunction, the file may not copy it properly. Like this here also it may happen. Say for example, another child, so this child, its first part is coming from parent 1, second part it should come from parent 2, but say it is coming like this, it should be checked, right? So but the first half is say the first half it is checked, but the second half checked is basically two lines, so this one line alone is coming, that another line it is not getting copied. So now you can say that this part is a mutated chromosome. Okay, so basically this is what mutation is about. Due to some reason, if the chromosome structure get changed, that is called as mutation. It may happen naturally, or it may also happen and due to some artificial reason, like impact of radiation or impact of sun rays or impact of extreme temperatures. Because of that also mutation can happen. Okay, uh, so I just thought of showing you some information. Just I browsed it. So this is nothing about technically, this is here we have from a genetics point of view, this is the definition of mutation. Okay, you can read this. A mutation is a change in a DNA sequence. Mutations can result from DNA copying mistakes. So basically offsprings are generated by copying the DNA from the parent. If this DNA's while copying, if there is any mistakes happened, okay, generally it is expected that mistake will not happen, but if such mistakes happen, then those mistakes, then the resultant offspring which is created with those mistakes are called as mutated genes. Okay, so why these mistakes happen? So the DNA copying mistakes made during cell division, exposure to, so this may happen due to ionizing radiation, exposure to chemicals called mutagens, or infection by virus, right? So germline mutations can occur in the egg and sperm and can be passed on to offspring. So sometimes the parent itself, the parent chromosome itself may be mutated, and it can be passed on to offspring. So that's what it says. So see this actually this thing, it explains clearly what is mutation. So these are the different types of mutation that happens in actual genetics. See, this is a DNA. Okay, this is an offspring. We are not talking about any parent. This is an offspring which is created, right? Now this offspring may get mutated due to any reason. So for example, one of the chromosome got one of the gene got deleted. So this is the gene sequence. Say this gene here, G, this character, this particular character got deleted, and also this G and C got deleted. So the resultant chromosome what you get, that is a mutated one, right? Or it may happen due to insertion. Here another gene is inserted from external environment. So this is also a mutation. Okay, or it may be substitution. See, some this G is getting replaced with this A. So this is also an example of mutation. So the same thing is represented here pictorially. So this is the chromosome of a particular child, of a offspring. So some part of the chromosome, this particular genes are getting deleted. As a result, you are getting this resultant chromosome. So this resultant chromosome is a mutated chromosome. Similarly, here this is duplication. Some part of the gene is getting duplicated. So this is the actual child, but due to some chemical reaction or whatever may be the reason, this part of the gene is getting duplicated in the child. It is copied twice. So this resultant chromosome is a mutated chromosome. This is an example for inversion. This in the original child, this part of the chromosome is something like this. Okay, so this at the top you can see this red line is, I mean this red box is quite bigger, but here it is a smaller two red box, but it got inverted, so it goes upside down. So this part comes at the top and this part comes at the bottom. So this is also, so now also here the resultant chromosome is a mutated chromosome. Similarly, if you see, this is substitution. This is one chromosome which is different, this is another chromosome. Okay, so here what happens, so it is getting this part from this chromosome, it is moved there. Okay, so it is deleted. So if you consider this as chromosome A and this is chromosome B, this red part from A got deleted and it is moved to the B chromosome. So that is called a substitution. And this is called as translocation. It means they are mutually exchanged. So this is, if you say this is chromosome A, this is chromosome B. In chromosome A, this red part, and in chromosome B, this green part, they both got exchanged. This green part, it comes to chromosome A, and this red part, it goes to chromosome B. So all these are examples of mutations. Like these different types of mutation happens in genetics. Okay, now we are connecting that with genetic algorithm, right? So this is the basic introduction to mutation. So here also we will be discussing different types of mutation, which is basically inspired from genetics or biology. Okay, so we have different mutation techniques for different types of GA. For example, already we have discussed the various binary, I mean encoding techniques. Okay, so we have discussed binary coded GA, real coded GA, ordered coded GA, tree encoded GA. Now the way in which mutation will be done for all these different coding techniques are different. So we are not going to discuss about ordered GA and tree encoded GA. We will be discussing only binary coded GA and real coded GA. I mean in binary coded GA and in real coded GA, how mutation occurs. That's what we are going to discuss. Okay, so there are basically three ways of performing mutation in binary coded GA, and these are flipping, interchanging and reversing. Like how in genetics we have seen how all these things are happening, deletion, insertion. So here it is confined to these three techniques: flipping, interchanging and reversing. Similarly, with respect to real coded GA, the mutation can be of two types. The first one is called random mutation. The second method is called as polynomial mutation. So basically we are going to discuss these 5 techniques for mutation. The first 3 techniques, flipping, interchanging and reversing, is applicable only for binary coded GA. That is the chromosome, whatever the chromosome, if it is a combination of zeros and ones, then these 3 techniques are applicable. If the chromosome is a real number, if it is a real value, then you have to follow any one of this technique, either random mutation or polynomial mutation. So mutation, so we'll be first, let us concentrate mutation, how mutation operation is done in binary coded GA. Fine, before getting into this theory, let us discuss this example. So this is the example for flipping. It is very straightforward. So we'll be discussing 3 techniques, right? So the first technique is flipping. So in flipping, see what happens in the sense, this is the offspring. This is an offspring which is already created. Okay. Now this is the mutation chromosome. Based on this mutation chromosome, this offspring should get mutated. So this mutation chromosome, what it says in the sense, you can see here there are some combination of zeros and ones, but always in case of uh, flipping technique, in the mutation chromosome the number of ones will be less, because we want to choose the number of, this is called as the probability of occurrence of one is called as pu. Okay, the probability of occurrence of one in this mutation chromosome is called as pu, and our objective is to have as less ones possible. Okay, it will not be of high probability, its probability will be very less. So compared to the length of the chromosome, the number of ones will be less. Right, now how this technique works in the sense, wherever there is one, then from the original chromosome that bit position will be flipped, that is called as flipping. So here you can see this position as a 1, so this original position, original offspring at this position, it contains 1, so it becomes 0. Okay, similarly here there is a 1, the original offspring at this position is 0, so this becomes 1, it got flipped. Okay, and similarly at this position we have a 1, the original gene or the original character at this position in the offspring is 0, so it got flipped to 1. Okay, so remaining all positions in the mutation chromosome is 0. In that case, whatever is in the actual offspring, that will just get into the mutated offspring. So this is 0 1 1, so that same 0 1 1 comes here. Similarly this is 0 1, sorry, this should be 0 1 only, not 1 0. Okay, it the same thing it comes, that's all, there is no change. Okay, so this is how this technique works, right? So now let us walk through that algorithm. Let us just read over that algorithm and let us try to understand what it says. So in binary coded GA, the mutation operator is simple and straightforward. In this case, one or few ones are converted to zeros and vice versa. Okay, we convert few ones to zeros and few zeros to ones. A common method of implementing the mutation operator involves generating a random variable called mutation probability. So here everything depends on this mutation probability. Okay, so wherever this mutation probability, so for every bit we have to generate the mutation probability. If the mutation probability is 1, then that particular bit from the actual offspring will be flipped, otherwise it will not be flipped. The mutation probability tells us whether or not a particular bit will be mutated, that is, it should be flipped or not. Okay, so this thing should be noted to avoid larger deflection. So generally if you see, mutation will not affect entire chromosome, it will affect only a small part of the chromosome. So generally mutation is not going to change too much of the features, it is going to make some slight changes. So in that context, to avoid larger deflection, this probability mu p, mutation probability value, is generally kept low. Okay, and it will be in the range of 0.1 by L to 1 by L. So where this mu p lies in the sense, it will be between 0.1 by L and 1 by L, where L is the length of the chromosome. Okay, if the length of the chromosome is 10, then this range will be 0.1 by 10 to 1 by 10, right? So this is how this technique works. So say this mutation chromosome is, say this is the offspring, say the mutation chromosome is this, I am changing the mutation chromosome. Now could you tell me what will be the resultant mutated offspring? Yeah, yes Akila. Okay, okay, could someone answer? Is the question is clear? Say this is the actual offspring, say this is the mutated chromosome, so what will be the resultant mutated offspring? 0 1, next is hmm, then hmm. No, this position is what? This is offspring. This is offspring. This is mutated chromosome. Okay, what is this position? This is uh, yeah, one. Okay, fine. So this is the actual offspring. So here there are three ones. So this all these things should be flipped. So this one becomes zero. This zero becomes one. This one becomes zero. This is 0 0. Okay, so this 1 and 0 will come as it is. Uh, this is 1. So this 0 should become what is this position? This is this should be 1. This should be 1. Okay, and this is 0 0. So this same thing will come as it is, right? So this is how this technique works. So this is what flipping does, right? So basically it selects some set of bits with a probability of pu, and those bits will be flipped. That's it. So next what we'll be discussing is interchanging. So in interchanging, we select two positions of child chromosomes. Two positions of child chromosomes are chosen randomly. Okay, depending on the length, you just select any two position randomly and just interchange that. That's it. So here in this chromosome, these are the two positions selected. So this is the actual child chromosome. So this position and this position were selected. So they two were interchanged. This 0 goes here and this 1 comes here. That's it. Okay. So sometimes whatever you select may be both 1. In that case there will not be any change. If both zeros also, there will not be any change. Okay. So assume that these are the two positions selected, this and this. So what will be the resultant chromosome? Not this. What will be the resultant chromosome? 1 0 1 0. Hmm. 0 1. Only thing is this one goes here and this 0 comes here. So this technique is called as interchanging. So we select randomly two positions, and those characters or those bits will be interchanged. See why? First of all, you try to understand why we are doing all these things. Why we are doing all these things? See, with respect to GA, each of this chromosome is what? This is one possible solution. That's all. Okay. In genetic algorithm, in actual genetic, this is a chromosome. But here it is what? It is one possible solution. Okay. So why we are changing? It means we are not happy with the solution. So the solution, so this solution is not an optimal solution. So you think that the solution can be improved better, but at the same time you don't want to improve too much. We want to say, for example, this is the what you call membership function. If your solution is somewhere here, you want to gradually bring the solution to here. If the objective is to find the global minima, if it is to minimize, you don't want to bring it from here to here. So what will you do? We will slowly we will change. So when you change, next you check whether is it improved from the previous solution or not. If it is improved, we will be happy. So actually what I mean in the sense, this is randomly selected by us. I mean from the user or from the programmer. He selects randomly two bits, he changes, again he checks this solution with the previous solution, is there an improvement or not. If there is an improvement, he will consider, otherwise he may ignore. Is it clear? Okay, so all these are nothing but solutions, but what we want to do, we want to identify as good solution as possible, right? So the whole picture you should not forget. See, the whole picture, whatever here we are discussing, is our problem space is too big. Problem space is too big. That problem space, in the sense the set of solutions that are available for the problem, it is too big. So in such a, how much big, in the sense it is so much big that You cannot individually check every solution and then you cannot find the which is the best solution. That is not possible, because we don't have that much time, and also we don't have that much computational power. So what you have to do, you have to identify available, you have to randomly pick up one solution and you have to check how much is it good. Okay, if it is say for example, if you feel that it is 60% okay, then you check the nearby solution, is there anything which is better than that, like that we will try. And at some time, say for example, you are able to reach a solution which is 85% and you are happy with that, then you will settle with that solution. Okay, so the whole point is, this is with this only we are working, right? For example, if the number of possible solutions for a given problem is say 20, then I can check all 20 solutions and I can identify which is the best, right? But assume that a number of possible solution for a given problem is 20 crores. This many solutions are available. Then is it possible for me to check each and every solution and identify the best solution? No. Okay, then what we do? Then we go for optimization. Are you getting? See, this is what happens in the real world. Say for example, in a year, assume that in a year, say India is creating 10 lakhs engineers. Okay. Now say for example, Microsoft want to recruit. In a year, India is creating 10 lakhs engineer. Microsoft want to recruit the best talent. Can they conduct test for all these 10 lakh and can they identify who is the best? Is it possible? Is it possible or not? What they do, generally what they do they do this? If Microsoft or Infosys or Google, if they want to identify the best talent, what they do they conduct some test for all the individuals? Answer something, yes or no. No, why they conduct for all? Where they will go? Say if Microsoft want to recruit, where they will go? Which institutes they will go? Will they go to any local institute? Where, where they will go? They will go to IITs, right? Am I right? First they will go to IITs. All top IITs they will go. IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi. They will identify top 5 IITs and they will go. Okay. So does it guarantee that the best talent is available in IIT? No. So maybe in ICFI Tech there may be the best student of this year. Okay, but sometimes they may not be knowing that. But that doesn't. Why they are? Because they cannot identify individually every student. So what they will do? They will identify. Okay, so IITs should have best talents. So they will go there and then they will choose. I mean, not only IITs, some top colleges they will go, and from them they will identify who is best and then who is best, like that. Okay, so that is called as actually an optimal solution. It is no, you cannot guarantee that that is the best. You cannot say that. Say for example, Google recruits somebody, then that doesn't mean that out of all the individuals who is passed out in this year, he is the best guy. No, that is not the answer. Okay, okay, he is a good choice. That is true, right? He is a good choice, but you can never say that that person is the best choice. So so this is also a kind of optimization problem. In real world, most of the time we do this only. Optimization only we can do, because you cannot identify the best talent. Okay, I think is it clear or not, or I have confused further? Yeah. So so the so the main issue is individually you cannot check every solution. So that is the reason why we go for this optimization based solution. Okay, so this is about interchanging. Next is reversing. So in case of reversing, what we do in the sense, we randomly choose only one position. We randomly choose only one position, and at that position, whatever the bit value will be there, that will be reversed. Oh, sorry, not that position. The position next to that. A position is chosen at random, and the bit next to that position is reversed. and the mutated child is produced. So here this is the random position we have selected. Now which is to be reversed, in the sense the one which is next to that. So the one which is next to that is this. So this bit is reversed. Okay, are you getting? For example, if this is the random thing we are selecting, then what will be the result? Remaining will be yeah. So okay, so like that. So this is what is called as reversing, right? So these are the three mutation techniques we have with binary coded GA. Next we will move on to the next technique, which is real coded GA. I mean the mutation techniques in real coded GA. So again we have two techniques here. One is random mutation, the other one is polynomial mutation. So with random mutation, it is a straight cut formula. Just we apply this formula. P mutated is equal to P original plus R minus 0.5 into delta, where R is a random number, where R is a random number between 0.0 and 1.0, and delta is a value which the user has to choose. So again, it depends on the experience and knowledge of the user. So the not only that, so what is this delta in the sense here? So the delta actually shows the upper bound. The delta represents the upper bound. That means the value will not go beyond that. Beyond that, in the sense, please try to understand clearly. For example, if P original is some value, okay, P original is some value, then after mutation, this delta ensures that the mutated string will not be greater than P original plus delta. Okay. So the upper limit will be P original plus delta. It won't go beyond P original plus delta. Is it clear what I am telling? If P original is some value, then the resultant mutated value will not be greater than P original plus delta. Okay. For example, say P original is equal to, in short I am calling it as PO. Say P original is equal to 20.5. Okay. Say delta is equal to 4.5. Okay. Then what will be? Then PM will not be greater than what? 25, right? So it will be less than or equal to 25. That much you can guarantee. Okay. So that control variable is delta. So how much you want to control? I want mutation. So everything depends on like how much you want a better solution. So I want to perform mutation to achieve a better solution, but at the same time I don't want the result to be beyond 25. If that is the case, then you have to choose delta as 4.5. Is it clear? Okay. For example, I want to make sure that the result should not go beyond 30. Then what should be delta? I want to make sure that the result should not be greater than 30. 9.5. Good. Yeah, exactly. So this is how delta is chosen. So before that, the user should have the knowledge, like what should be the upper limit, where it should not cross. All these things the user should know. Then he can choose this delta. Okay. So here is an example, which is a straightforward example. P original is 15.6, R is 0.7, delta is 2.5. So what is the maximum value R can take? What is the maximum value R can take? Or is it random? No, maximum value I am asking. In this case, it's 0.7. It's a random number between what and what? No. R is a random number between 0.0 and. Okay, so maximum value R can take is 1. Okay, so what is 1 into delta? Delta. Oh yeah. So the maximum value P mutation can take is what? P original plus delta. Are you getting? That is how we got this P original plus delta. Right? So if P original is this, if R is this and delta is this, then this will be the mutated value. Okay, 15.6 for R 0.7 and delta 0.5, the result is 16.1. Okay. In this case, the mutated string will not exceed what? For this example, the mutated string will not exceed what value? 17 point? Yeah, yeah, 15.6 plus 2.5. 16.5, 17.5, 18.1, right? 18.1. It won't exceed 18.1. Okay. So that is how it is done. Okay. So that's it about what do you call random mutation in real coded GA. It's direct application of this formula. And then mutation in real coded GA with this next technique is polynomial mutation. Here what we do, here also we use a random number R, which will be between 0.0 and 1.0, and then we use here two more parameters. We use two more parameters. One is this dow and another one is this delta. Okay. So dow value, how it is calculated in the sense, if R is less than 0.5, that is if the random number generated is less than 0.5, the dow is calculated based on this formula. Okay. If R is greater than or equal to 0.5, then dow is calculated with this formula. Right. Again, here there is another factor Q. This Q also the user has to choose. Okay. Q is the exponent. It can be either positive or negative value decided by the user. So based on this, the dow is calculated. And then again del is the upper limit, like how previously we chosen del. Similarly, here also del represents the upper limit, that is beyond which I mean P original plus del cannot exceed beyond a certain limit. So like that, the user should choose the correct value for del. There are two things the user should choose here. One is del, also the user should choose, and Q also the user should choose. And then R will be generated random. Based on the value of R, dow will be calculated either by using this equation or by using this equation. Once this is done, then the mutated string will be calculated like this. P mutated is equal to P original plus dow into del. So here is an example. P original is 15.6, R is 0.7, Q is 2, del is 1.2. Then the mutated one is, here R is 0.7. Okay. So how will you calculate dow? Which equation you should use? First one or the second one? Second one. This one should be used. Q is given. Q is 2. So it is dow is calculated like this, 0.1565. Okay. Now P mutated is what? It is just P original plus dow into del. Dow is this value and del is this. So this is how polynomial mutation works. This is just a revisiting of this. So if you recall, this is how normally genetic algorithm works. This is the flowchart you might be remembering. So we start and then we generate initial population. Through encoding we generate initial population, and then we pick up a random solution and we check whether it is converged or not. If it is not converged, then we perform the fitness evaluation for each of the individual in the population, that is for each of the possible solution, and then we identify the the mating pool, and then we perform crossover, mutation, inversion, all these things. And again, from the new set of population, from the new offsprings which we have generated, we will identify the best individual and we check whether whether the problem has converged or not. If it is not converged, again repeat all these process, right? So in this, if you see, we have discussed all these things: encoding, fitness, and mating pool selection, crossover. Now we are discussing about mutation. Mutation is also done. Now next we will be discussing this inversion. Okay. Termination. So before that, this convergence criteria, how the solution is getting converged. So convergence means what? When should we stop? When should we stop? Actually, this is a critical question in genetic algorithm. Not only in genetic algorithm, in any AI based problem, this is a critical question. When you have to stop, because see why this is a critical question means it is actually depends on the optimal solution. So remember that optimal solution is not the optimal solution need not be the best solution. Okay. So optimal solution means I am okay with that solution. That is called as an optimal solution. Or given the situation, it is fine with that solution. Okay. So say for example, uh, actually this optimal, what is optimal solution? This you should refer many articles to understand, or at least you should listen to some videos. Okay. So basically, it means that always you cannot get best things in life, but we generally we feel happy with good things. Okay, that means everybody will have set some optimal limit. Okay, I'm happy with this, right? So it is not that even if somebody has enough resources, it is not that he will keep on try to get the best thing, because that may not be possible, right? That may not be possible. Okay, right? Say for example, what I can say in the sense, say for example, somebody is very rich. Okay, he has so many crores of rupees. Okay, say for example, he want to travel from Hyderabad to some nearest place which is 100 or 200 kilometers away. Okay, so that doesn't mean that he will go by helicopter. Okay, he may be able to afford. Okay, but at that situation he may not choose that. He may go by road in a best car. Okay, so because that is a good solution here. So this is also something like that. So when to converge? So when to converge, it actually depends on so many factors. It depends on the problem, what type of problem it is, how much complex it is, what type of computing power we have, how much computing power we have, and what type of solution we are expecting, how much best solution we want. So that is actually what type of problem it is. I mean, in which field you are applying the problem, right? Sometimes the field in which you are applying may be very critical field, and you want a very accurate solution. You cannot compromise. But in certain cases, we may compromise with the solution. Any reasonable good solution will be fine. So based on these factors, this convergence criteria will be decided. So here are some list, right? So all these are the situations to decide the convergence criteria. Actually, there is no you cannot say that there is one rule. It actually varies with the problem, varies with the computational power, varies with several factors, right? So this is one situation under which the convergence criteria may happen. What is that? A solution is found that satisfies the objective criteria. Some objective criteria was there. Okay, you found a solution which is satisfying that. Okay, so then you stop, right? So one real world example, what I can say in the sense, say for example, you at the end of final year, you will go for placement, right? Say you are keeping a target that I should get a job in a company with more than salary of 7 lakh per annum. Okay. Say for example, you attend many interviews, 2 3 interviews. Say so now you got one job which is paying you 8 lakh. So which is more than your objective criteria. This is your objective was 7, but you got more than that. So probably, mostly you will be happy with that and you will settle with that. Okay, it is not that you will identify which is the highest package. Okay, you may compete for that. You may compete for that, but that doesn't mean that you will be ignoring this and will be going for that. Okay, so this is something like that, right? Or say for example, you are getting this 8 lakh package immediately, but say another 5 years if you work, you may get a package for 15 lakhs. But there is another 5 years criteria is there, right? So probably you may go with this. So that is what is called as the solution is found to be satisfied, that is meeting the objective criteria. Okay, or in some cases fixed number of generation is executed. How many times? So this is actually based on computational power. So I have this much computational power and this much time. My time is also limited. I cannot keep on doing the same thing. So say for example, I have maximum I can allocate say 10 days for this program to run. So I can, so since some AI program, it will run for several days also, okay, to converge to a solution. So maybe it may be running in a supercomputer. We will execute, say let me execute for 10 days. So after 10 days, whatever the solution comes, I'll take that. So that is called a fixed number of iteration. Or here instead of iteration, we use generation. Because each iteration, a new set of offspring is generated. Allocated budget. This is computational power or time, whatever it may be. Okay. So this is with respect to physical time. This is with respect to computational budget. So when you keep on running the program, there may be some cost incurred for the company. Say if you switch on the server and if you are running one day, say the cost is 2 lakhs, then there may be a budget for this project. So how much you can execute, how much you can spend. So based on that, you will arrive at one solution. Okay. Or the highest ranking solution fitness is reaching or has reached a plateau such that successive iterations no longer produce better result. So what does this mean in the sense? I am running the program for several times, but there is no improvement. There is no improvement. See, if first I run the program for 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, or 100 times, there is improvement. But after 100th iteration, there is no improvement at all. The accuracy is same. Say at 100th iteration, say the accuracy is 78%. At 110th iteration also, it is 78.000001%. Okay, at 150th iteration also it is 78.00002. So it means there is no improvement or the improvement is very minimal. So in that case you can think and you can stop, because you can, all these things are based on experience. So you can decide that this algorithm or it may not improve further, so better we will stop. So that is what is called as this. It reaches a plateau at one point. That is, plateau means it is keep on in the same level. Or by manual inspection. Actually this is a normally it is very tough with respect to AI or this kind of problem, because the problem space is very huge. Manually you cannot expect everything, right? Or sometimes a combination of one or two or more of these techniques, right? Okay. So this is how we decide the convergence criteria, right? So these are the various ways by which the convergence, whether to converge or not. Converge means whether to stop executing and whether to go with the available best solution or not. Okay, so next what we are going to discuss is fitness scaling. So as I have already discussed, as I have already told you, fitness scaling means why we need fitness scaling. So if you see this particular graph, what it says in the sense, this is the problem space of a particular problem. This is the search space of a particular problem. Right? So let us assume that we want to identify the optimal solution. So if you see this point, this is an optimal solution, but this is a local optimal. This is a global optimal. Okay. This is the overall problem space, the solution space. The solution lies in this space. Okay. But currently, whatever the genetic algorithm technique we are using, it is generating population only between this range, right? It is generating population or it is generating individual only between this range. It is not generating individual beyond this range. So this is the these are the fitness score. Okay, so it is able to generate individual with a fitness score of this much and with a fitness score of this much. In this range, it is generating the individuals. Okay, but if you see, the global optimal solution is lying here. This is the global optimal solution. So as long as the individuals are coming from only this region, as long as the individuals are coming from this region, your problem will not improve. I mean you may not be able to identify the global optimal. You may identify the local optimal. This optimal solution you may identify, and you may have to be happy with this. But the question is there any way? Is there any way that I can move from this region to this region? That is there any way that the genetic algorithm which I am using can produce some individual with fitness score in this area? So you need not directly jump here. If you are able to create one offspring whose fitness score is somewhere here, okay, then what will happen with that offspring? Then we can slowly check further offspring, further, and like that you can improve to global optimum. Is there any method available or not? Yes, there is a method, and that is called as fitness scaling, right? So that is what we are going to discuss in the next few slides. So could someone summarize what is fitness scaling? Yes. What is fitness scaling? Are you following or not? Yeah, good. Yeah, that is in essence. Essence, it is that. Okay. So it helps us to move from local optimal to global optimal. Why? Because all the individuals are in a limited range. In a limited range. Okay. So this problem can occur in two cases. This is case one. In case one, if you see, actually this individual will have some fitness score, say X, okay, or X1. This is the local optimal, and this is the global minimum. But here our objective is to say maximize. Here our objective is to find the maximum. So we want to find we don't want to minimize, we want to maximize. Okay. So say this is X2. This point is X2. This is X1. Okay. I'll come back here again. This situation may happen in two cases. This is another case. Here if you see, this is the overall the solution space, but the genetic algorithm got stuck in this range. That is, the genetic algorithm which we are using is creating individuals only within this range. Only within this range. So its solution lies only within this range. It is not going beyond. And in this case, this is our global optimum. Global optimal. This is the global optimal. This is the local optimum. Right? Here, if you see, this point is the local optimum. Okay, and this point is this is local maxima, and this is the global minimum. Okay, right. Now, what's the difference between that graph and this graph? Say here the local maximum point, let us say it is X1 and this is X2. Okay, there also I have marked X1 and X2. There also the local maximum point is X1 and the global minimal point is X2. What is the difference between this graph and that graph? Any observation? You can tell something, it may be wrong also. What do you observe? Yes. What is the range between this? What is the range between X1 and X2 in this case and in that case? Here, what is the range between X1 and X2, and there what is the range between X1 and X2? Let us assume this X1 and X2 range is A. Okay, and this X1 and X2 range is B. Okay, so which is bigger? B is bigger or A is bigger? B is bigger, right? So there B is larger than A, which means that here this range is very high, very high. I mean this point is very at the top and this point is at bottom. Okay, so genetic algorithm will always choose what type of individuals. Here it is low point means with respect to what we are studying, with respect to fitness score. His fitness score is low, whereas this individual's fitness score is high. Right? So genetic algorithm for creating next offspring, it always choose which individual with good fitness score or with less fitness score. Yeah. So the algorithm will most of the time it will select individual from this range, because it has to select from good individuals. So it will ignore this, whatever this bottom part it will ignore. So always it will select individual from this region only, and with them only it will create offspring, and those offspring also will lie in this region only. This is the drawback with this problem, right? So that is what here it is explained. Here the fitness value are with wider range. Wider range means this range. We are talking about this range. This range is wider. That means there is a huge gap is there between this local maxima and this global minima. So that is wider range. It then highly favors the individual with large fitness values. So in every round, it will favor the individual with large fitness value, because these individuals are tend to have better fitness value than these individuals. So they will be selected in every round for creating the next generation or for mating pool. Thus the algorithm will stuck at local optima or premature termination or inaccurate result. Right? So this case is also a problem, right? And coming to this case, here what is the gap between x1 and x2? It's very less. It's very less. Okay. So here, so it is almost like a flat. If you see this graph, it is some small curve is there, but at this part alone, if I draw here, it is almost like a flat only, leaving alone this part. So if you see this range, it is something like a flat only. There is no much difference in the, what you call, there is no much difference in the fitness value. This, maybe this guy's fitness value is quite high, this fitness value, but still the difference, if you see, it's less, right? So the algorithm, what it will do in the sense, every time it will select the individuals in this range, in this area, and the result also will be lying in this range only. So it won't go beyond that. Okay. Here the fitness value are with narrow range. I mean this gap is small. In this case, successive iteration will not show any improvement. So in that case, in every iteration it will choose from the best individual. But in this case, it will choose from the, in this limited space only. Will not show any improvement and hence stuck at local optima or premature termination. Are you getting? So what's the difference between the case 1 and case 2? Could someone summarize? Okay, right. But in case 1 it will always select individuals of, in case 2 not less. In case 2 all these individuals fitness value were almost same. Are you getting? So that only we are telling the range is narrow. Narrow means what? There may be slight difference, but it is not a great difference. Are you getting? Say for example, somebody got say 92 percentage in soft computing, somebody got 90. Will you put them in different brackets? Hmm? No, so they are almost in the same range. Okay, right? Somebody got, say, so whatever made the more than 85 to 90, maybe we may, or 95, we'll put it in A grade. So even though their marks are different, so this is also something like that. The difference is very less. So every time this same, in this range the individuals will be selected, and the resultant offspring also will be in the same range, and hence it won't move further. Okay. So actually here the problem in both the cases, the algorithm is get stuck in a small search space. So that is what is the problem. So here it is in this search space it got stuck, and here in this search space it got stuck. So the question is there any way we can move the we can make the algorithm to come out of this, so that uh, probably it can move towards the global optimal solution? Yes, so that technique is what is called as fitness scaling. Okay. So whatever we have discussed, that's what mentioned here. If fitness value are two apart, then it will select several copies of good individuals, and many other worst individuals will not be selected at all. That is in the case 1. So the graph is something like this. Okay. So it will select only from this region. This will be totally ignored. This will tend to fill the entire population with very similar chromosomes. After a period of time, what will happen? Every individual will be with this similar fitness score only. Okay. in the case 2, if the fitness values are too close to each other, in case 2 the graph is like this, the top point and bottom point, the difference is very small, okay, then the GA will tend to select one copy of each individual consequently. So it means that everybody will be selected because all are lying in the same bracket. It is something like everybody is A grade. Consequently, it will not be guided by, so there is no variation. So there is no variation, and the search scope will be reduced. Okay. So these two cases were problematic in the sense that the problem may get stuck with local optima. So is there any way out? So as a way out, we can think of crossover or mutation with a higher fluctuation in the values of design parameter. So this is one thing you can think like what. So what this says in the sense, in the design parameter itself, you give a higher range. Why are you giving this? Why are you making this range smaller? You make the range wider. You make the range wider such a way that individuals from different regions can get selected. But if you do this, then the problem will not converge quickly, and it may, what do you call, it may, that may not lead to an optimal solution in a short period of time. So that's what explained here, but that will not help us. This will lead to chaos, confusions in searching. It may jump from one local optimal to another. It's need a higher number of iterations. These are the drawbacks. So that way it won't work. Okay. So this is like what you know. This is like this is like what I said previously. If Microsoft want to identify the best individual, it is this method, this first method. As a way out, we can think of crossover or mutation with a higher fluctuation. Higher fluctuation means increase the range. So now if Microsoft want to pick up from somebody, probably they will go to IITs and IIMs. Okay. So but somebody says to Microsoft that it is not that all good students are in IIT and IIM. Maybe good students are maybe in some other college also. So thinking that if Microsoft want to conduct interviews on all the engineering colleges in India, that is not possible at all. So that will lead to chaos. That is, they have to do lot of search, right? And it needs large number of iterations. Okay, and it may jump from one local optimal to another. That means, for example, local optimal means what? In one place, that is the best solution. Okay. In ICFI Tech, some student is best. That is a local optima, right? Maybe in IIT Hyderabad, some other student may be best. That is another local optima. But global optima is the one who is top of everything. But in this case, in this type of problem, you cannot actually find the global optima. You have to get happy with the reasonable best solution. Okay. So this way it won't work. It will be time consuming and it is not a wise approach. Okay. As an alternative, we are thinking this fitness scaling strategy. Fitness scaling is used to scale the raw fitness value so that the GA sees a reasonable amount of difference, right? It's a reasonable amount of difference in the scaled fitness values of best versus worst individuals. Okay. So that is what it is going to do. So these are the three types of fitness scaling technique we have: linear scaling, sigma scaling, and power scaling, right? So why we are using fitness scaling? To avoid premature convergence. Premature convergence is nothing but to settle in local optimum, or it is also called as slow finishing. Fine. First let us discuss about linear scaling. So in linear scaling, this is the input, say f. So the f contains f1, f2, fn. So these are the individuals. Okay. So from the population we have set of individuals. Each individual is a solution. So these are the individuals. But now these individuals are lying in that area of local optima. We want to move them to the global optimal range. Okay. So how scaling will be done? That's what we are going to discuss. So this is the input. Output will be this: f dash equal to f1 dash, f2 dash up to fn dash. So now the question is, how are we going to identify this f1 dash, f2 dash and up to fn dash? Okay. So this is the algorithm. So algorithm, what it says in the sense, first you identify f dash. F dash is nothing but mean. So we don't have the output. From input we have to proceed. Okay. F dash is nothing but mean of all these things. That is, it is f1 plus f2 plus up to fn divided by n, the number of individuals. So that is called as f dash. Identify f dash, keep it, and then identify the maximum of these individuals whose fitness score is max. So f max is nothing but max of all these f, and also identify the minimum, the one with the minimum fitness score. So f min is equal to minimum of f. So what we have identified, we have just identified the mean of all these f, we have identified the max score, we have identified the mean score. Okay, then from these three things, from min and max, we calculate two things, a and b. So a is nothing but f dash by f max minus f, okay, and b is nothing but f dash into f min by f min minus f. What is f dash? What is f dash? Yeah, mean of, mean of all fi's. Okay, so a is equal to that f dash, that is mean of all fi's divided by f max minus f, and b is nothing but f dash into f min divided by f min minus f. Okay, so like that we identify the f min minus f dash, this is f dash. Okay, we identify a and b. Then with this, now we can calculate fi. So it is every f1, f2, f3, fi dash. Okay, for each fi, for each fi we can calculate fi dash. Fi dash equal to a into fi plus b. That's it. So what is f1 dash? A into f1 plus b. Like that, we f2 dash is equal to a into f2 plus b, so on and so forth. What is fn dash? Yes, like that you calculate all fi's. Okay, after calculating each fi, you add it to the set f dash. So that is finally f dash will be f1 dash, f2 dash. Okay, so once you identify f1 dash, put it in f dash, and f2 dash, like that f3 dash, so on and so forth. It will have all the values, right? So this is how we perform linear scaling. So again there is a question. So what is the guarantee that it will move towards global maxima? So it is highly expected that it will move to global maxima. There is no guarantee. Are you getting? So you have to always check the previous solution and the current solution. So after identifying these new f's, you have to check whether this is giving better result or the previous one is giving better result. Okay, so if it gives better result, it is good. Now you can continue, then you may move towards the global maximum, right? So that's the idea. Okay, so in linear scaling there is a in order to in order not to follow dominance by superior individuals. Okay, what does this mean? Dominance by superior individuals means, dominance by superior individual means every time every time the individual with the good fitness score will be selected again and again. So there is a chance, right? If someone is having good fitness score, then they will be selected again and again, right? In genetic algorithm. So this happens in real time also. So if someone is having good CGPA, someone is having 9.5 CGPA and he is good in all programming languages, then probably he may be get selected by many companies, right? He may be selected by 2 companies, 3 companies, 4 companies. Now then what the placement department will do, I think you know. Then the placement in charge will say that if someone got placed in more than 3 companies, he should not apply for any other companies, right? This happens naturally because he is not allowing others to compete, and already he got a decent package, everything, right? So the same thing here also. So that is what is called as dominance by superior individuals. So dominance by superior individuals should be controlled after a certain limit. In order not to follow dominance by superior individuals, the number of copies can be controlled. The number of copies can be controlled by this formula. So that is one superior individual, how many times he can occur? He can occur this much time, f dash max. He cannot go beyond f dash max. So f dash max is equal to c into f dash. What is c? C is equal to f max minus f min divided by f dash minus f min. Are you getting? So that means that an individual with a and superior individual, that is an individual with a very good fitness score, he will not be selected more than this many times. Okay. So could someone say what is meant by not allowing, not to follow dominance by superior individuals? Yes. What is meant by not to follow dominance by superior individuals? What is this F dash max says? Should I repeat again? Yes. See in genetic algorithm always we select the for mating pool we select individuals with better fitness score, right? So it is highly likely that the individual with good fitness score may be selected again and again, right? So somebody is having fitness score 97, okay, say the maximum fitness score is 100, then this individual will be selected again and again. But if you keep creating offspring with the same individual, then the resultant offspring will also be of similar fitness score, which is not healthy, right? Now there should be a limit. There should be an upper limit, like how many times an individual with best fitness score can be selected. Beyond that, he should not be selected, right? So that is what is called as not allowing dominance by superior individuals, right? Okay. In real world also this happens, right? For example, I think in our college also, if somebody is having a good CGP and he is good in programming, probably he may get selected by many companies, 3 4 companies. But then I think the placement team has an upper limit that a student cannot get offer letter by more than 3 companies. If that is the case, then he should not sit in any other further interviews. Are you getting? So why? Because if he sits, then he only will be selected, right? So here also there should be an upper limit on the number of times the individual with good fitness score got selected. So that upper limit, how it is fixed in the sense by this formula, f dash max is equal to c into f dash, where c is equal to f max minus f min by f minus f min. Okay. So could you now summarize what is this not allowing dominance by superior individuals? Yeah, how it is done? Yeah. So what is the upper limit? Yeah. So now this individual, for example, this individual is 10th individual. Now this 10th individual maximum how many times he can appear means f dash max times. If it is beyond that, the algorithm will not select that individual. Right? The next is sigma scaling. So in sigma scaling, it's quite similar with a different formula. So the input and outputs are same. This is set f with the individuals. Now we want to create another set f dash, which is a scaled individual f1 dash, f2 dash up to fn dash. Again, as usual, first you calculate the mean. So f dash is mean, which is nothing but f1 plus f2 plus f3 up to fn by n. Okay. Next, what we do, now we calculate something called as fw. We calculate fw, where fw is equal to f dash plus s into sigma. Determine reference worst case fitness value fw. Okay, fw is worst case, reference worst case fitness value, okay, which is calculated as f dash plus s into sigma. Okay, what is this sigma? Sigma is nothing but the standard deviation. Sigma is standard deviation. So what's the formula for standard deviation? What's the formula for standard deviation? Yes. Xi minus summation of xi minus mu, that is the average or mean, the whole squared by n, and the root of that, right? Sigma is given like this. Okay. I mean, this is okay. Here what you have to use, instead of xi what you have to use, in our case what will be sigma. This is generic formula. Yeah, fi. What is, instead of mu what you have to use, f dash, that is the mean, by the whole square divided by n, right? Okay, like this you calculate sigma. So we have all fi, f1, f2, fn. Plug in this equation. So it is summation, right? f1 minus f dash the whole squared by n plus f2 minus f dash the whole squared by n, so on and so forth. So you got sigma, right? Then yes, is actually the scaling factor. How much scaling should be done? So normally we are scaling. Scaling means we are either increasing or decreasing the value, right? So here in this case actually we are increasing. So scaling is usually between 1 to 5. So again the programmer should choose this value depending on how much scaling is required. So accordingly that S value will be decided. Once you have decided FW, once you have identified FW, then we calculate Fi dash for each Fi with this formula. That is Fi dash equal to Fw minus Fi if Fw is greater than Fi. That is, for every Fi you have to check whether Fw is greater than Fi or not. If Fw is greater than Fi, then Fi dash equal to Fw minus Fi. Okay. Otherwise Fi dash will be 0. So this is how the scaling is done, right? Say for example, I will give you some, say Fw is equal to 20. Okay. Say F is equal to 5, 10, 15, 25 and 30. Okay, what will be F dash as per this formula? These are individual Fi. This is Fw. If Fw is greater than Fi, what should you do? Otherwise 0. So first case is Fw is greater than Fi. So what will be F1 dash? 15. Second case, is it greater than? So yeah, third case, fourth case. Yeah. Okay, like this we can dash, right? So this is the scaled values for these values, right? So it is expected that it will move towards global maximum. Okay. So that's it about the second scaling technique, which is sigma scaling. The next is power scaling. So power scaling is it's just a simple logic. It just says that. So here also we have this input and output is same. Input is F, which is nothing but F1, F2 up to Fn. Output is F dash, which is nothing but F1 dash, F2 dash up to Fn dash. But how all these F1 dash or calculated, Fi dash were calculated in the sense Fi dash equal to Fi to the power of k, that's all, where k is a constant which should be decided by the user, okay, or the programmer. Say for example, if f is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, say k is equal to 2, then what will be f dash? What will be f dash? 1, 4, yeah, okay. So like this it is calculated. If it is 3, then it is to the power of 3, right? So that's it about mutation. I mean different types of what we have discussed. The other mutations we have discussed, and scaling we have discussed. Okay. So now with this we have finished all the different methods of reproduction, all the different reproduction operations. Okay. And also we have discussed like how convergence is done. Fine. Now let us how much time we have? We have another 20 minutes. We'll move on to the next topic. So this topic is also a continuation of GA, uh, but in GA we have finished all the operations. Now we'll be moving on to the next topic, which is called as MOOP. Actually, it is a quite lengthy topic. We'll be discussing this for a few more lectures. So MOOP, it stands for multi-objective optimization problem. So basically, it is an optimization problem, but it is an multi-objective optimization problem, right? So what is mean by that? So far we have discussed some optimization problems where there is only one objective function. We have discussed optimization problem with only one objective function. But in real time, most of the optimization problems will have multiple objective function. Okay. In real time, most of the optimization problem will have multiple objective functions. So such optimization problems are called as multi-objective optimization problem. Okay. So for example, say that for example, if someone says that I after my BTech I want a job with 7 lakhs package per annum, wherever maybe it is fine. That is, I don't, the job may be in Hyderabad or Delhi or anywhere, but I need this package. So it means this is a single objective function. It means that individual or that student, he is having only one objective. I want this package, that's it. Okay. But somebody else says that I want a job with more than 7 lakh package and I want the job to be in Hyderabad. Okay. I want the job to be in Hyderabad and I want the job only in these companies, TCS, Wipro, Microsoft. Okay. This is actually a multi-objective function. Here this person, this student is having only one objective, this package, that's it. But this student is having three objectives. The package should be more than 7 lakhs, the place should be Hyderabad, and the company should be this list. So this type of things are called as multi-objective functions. So in real time, actually most of the problems are multi-objective optimization problems. It's not, you hardly will find a single objective optimization problem, right? So how to solve those problems, that's what we are going to discuss. Okay. So in this lecture, just we'll be discussing a brief intro to multi-objective optimization problem. So in a single objective optimization problem, you will have only one function, and that function will be given by some function f, and it may that there may be many design variables. So f may be working on different variables like x1, x2 up to xn, but you have only one function. Either you want to maximize this function or you want to minimize this function. So if you are able to maximize this function or minimize this function successfully, then this problem is solved. But in case of multi-objective optimization problem, we will not have one, we will not have one say objective. We'll have more than one objective. We'll have more than one objective function. So there may be a function f1 which is working on these. The design parameters may be same up to xn. There may be another function f2, x1, x2 up to xn. Okay. There may be another parameter another function f3, which is also working on these design values x1, x2 up to xn. Now this optimization also may vary. For example, you may want to maximize this function f1, but you may want to minimize this function f2, and you may want to maximize this function f3. So all these things should be done at the same time. That is, I want to maximize this, I want to minimize this, I want to maximize this. Okay. For example, if you take that job thing, so say this f1 may represent salary. Okay, so I want to maximize the salary, right? f2 may represent the distance of the company from my hometown. Okay, what it should be, minimize or maximize? Yes. Are you getting? Yes, could you answer? Are you following or not? See, f1 is, say f1, this function f1, say it is salary. So any individual, what he want to do? He want to maximize the salary or minimize the salary? Let us assume f1 represents salary. So what you want to do? Salary should be maximized or should be minimized? Maximized, right? So f1, so that x1 is, so that I'm saying f1 is maximized. Say f2 represents the distance of your working place from your home. Okay, distance of your office from your home. So what you want this to be? Minimized. Okay, so this may be distance between your home to office. Are you getting? F3 may be, F3 may be, say, the what do you call, the rank of the company. What is the, what is the market value of your company? Okay, so what you want it to be? It should be maximized or minimized? Maximum. So this is just an example. So like that, in the real world, if you see anything, it will be of multi-objective optimization problem. There will be several parameters, and at the same time, some of the parameters should be maximized and some should be minimized. Okay. So the point is, there will be more than one objective function. You will not have just one objective function, you will have more than one objective function, and some of the function you may want to maximize and some of these function you may want to minimize. So it's a combination of multiple objective function. So that is represented here mathematically. Here you can see fi of x1 x2 up to xn, where this I ranges from 1 to m. It means that you have multiple function. There is a function f1 which ranges from x1 to xn. There is a function f2 which ranges from x1 to xn. There is a function f3 which ranges from x1 to xn, so on and so forth up to fm we have. Okay, so if m is 5, then you will have 5 functions. If m is 3, you have 3 functions. Okay, so now we have more than one function, and each of these function maybe you may have to maximize or minimize. Some of these functions should be maximized, some should be minimized depending on the problem. But in case of single objective optimization problem, we have only one objective function. Okay, and also there will be many constraints. So the constraint also, for each of the function there will be a different constraint. So gj and all these, and on all these what you call, design variables. Okay, and this constraint normally will be working on some constant with ROP. ROP is relational operator, right? So there will be many constraints, like how there are different objective functions. For each of the objective function, there will be a constraint that will be represented using the function g, right? And these are, and there will be some number of design variables. Okay, so this is how the, what do you call, the objective function, the multi-objective optimization problem is defined. So these design variables, again, it will work based on the relational operator. So it normally we check like xk, some relational operator dk. So dk is design variable. So we say no. In single objective function also we will say that, for example, in the previous case we have discussed that r is less than 0.5 means follow this rule. This is nothing but a design variable. R is greater than or equal to 0.5 means follow this rule. Okay, so that is, there is only one function, but now we'll have many functions. For each of these function we'll have different constraints or different design variables. So as a whole, what the takeaway point in the sense, in a multi-objective optimization problem, you will have more than one function, and each of this, and some of these functions should be maximized and some of the functions should be minimized. Okay, so here is a note. for a multi-objective optimization problem, m will be greater than or equal to 2. If m is 1, then it is a single objective function. Objective functions can be either minimization, maximization, or both. Both in the sense combination of some functions you want to minimize, some you want to maximize. Okay. So this is a formal definition. We are representing like this. Why we are see this is a formal mathematical definition, but here we are mentioning only minimize. So you may ask, why are we only mentioning minimize? Because actually the objective function can be either minimize or maximization. So the reason is, I'll come to that, but let us first see this. Y is equal to f of x such that y1 belongs to f1 of x, y2 belongs to f2 of x, up to yk belongs to fm of x. Okay. So whatever we have discussed here, that is here represented in a crispy way. That's it. So from this, what you can observe in the sense, f of x is equal to y1, y2, y3 up to yk. Okay, right? Where y1 is a member of f1 of x, where y1 belongs to f1 of x and y2 belongs to f2 of x, so on and so forth up to ym. Okay, ym belongs to fm of x, right? So it means what, or this it's yk, because it's not only one y, there may be multiple y belongs to the same function, right? So the point is, this function itself contains multiple functions. This f of x, you can call it as a bigger function. It contains y1, y2, y3, all these things, where each of these values come from f1 of x, f2 of x up to fm of x. So it is like something like each contains multiple function, right? Okay, and some of the function actually we want to maximize, and some of this function we want to minimize. But as a whole, here we are mentioning only minimize. We are not mentioning maximize. The reason is any maximization problem can be converted to a minimization problem. Okay, and also the vice versa. Any minimization problem can be converted to a maximization problem. Okay. Now, how to convert? If you ask that question, to convert a maximization problem to a minimization problem, just multiply that problem with -1. That's it. If you multiply, this is a very generic solution. This is applicable for all type of problem. So to convert a maximization problem to a minimization problem, you have to just multiply the maximization problem by -1. Okay. So there is a proof. You can go and check in the net. I don't want to go into the mathematics part of that. So as a rule of thumb, you can remember this. To convert any maximization problem to a minimization problem, what you have to do is you have to just multiply it by -1. Okay. So for example, if there is a function maximize f of x, something is given like this, means, so we don't know what is f of x, but this is what given. Okay, now I can say that f dash of x is equal to minimize of minus f of x. Both are same, this and this are same. Okay, right? Or this can be further written something like this: minimization of f dash of x is equal to minus f of x. Is it clear? So how will you convert a maximization problem to a minimization problem? Yeah, then it will be converted to minimization. Okay, so here you have multiple functions, f1, f2 up to fm. Some of them will be minimization function, some of them will be maximization function. If it is by default, if it is a minimization function, leave it as it is. If it is a maximization function, then what should we do? With maximization problem, so that it will be converted to minimization. Okay, so now all the problem we have converted to minimization problem, right? So that's what this is happening here, right? Okay. So here there are two parameters you can see, one is x, another one is y. X is the input, this is input f of x, okay, and y is the output. These are the things which we have to decide, okay. So x is nothing but x1. So x is a combination of this x1 x2 up to xn, which is coming from the bigger set x, and y is a combination of y1 y2 up to yn, which is coming from y, okay, bigger set y. X is this x is called as decision vector, okay, that is each individual x is called as a decision vector, right? Sorry, not each individual x, this entire vector, it's called as decision vector, and y is called as the objective vector, and this whole all x's, all decision vector put together, it is called as decision space, and all objective vector put together, it is called as objective space, okay. So this is how formally or mathematically this MOOP, multi-objective optimization problem, is defined. So here it is just represented graphically. So as we discussed, x is input and y is output. Say for example, for y we have two functions. Output may depend on any number of functions, but in multi-objective it will be minimum, it should be 2. It can be more than or equal to 2 also. So here let us assume there are two functions, f1 and f2. These are the two functions. Based on the two functions we have to identify some output, okay. So here y, so actually y is equal to, here actually this y contains two y's, y1 and y2, okay. So first y1, if you see, y1 is equal to f1 of x, that is what the first y1 you will get, and y2 will be is equal to f2 of x, okay. Who is that? Who is that? Somebody's mic is on. Hey. So this is how we will calculate y1. I mean, y is a combination of y1 and y2, where y1 is a what you call it is from this function f1, and y2 is from the function f2. So that here f1 and f2. So based on that, some point is created, okay. But again, this is there is a mapping from input. For input, let us assume there are three functions are there. What are they? x1, x2 and x3. x1, x2 and x3. So based on that, this x is decided here, okay. So there is a mapping from this input space to this objective space. So based on this input, this output will be decided, okay. So solving the MOOP implies to search x in the decision space. So this is the decision space for an optimum vector y in the objective space. So whatever we have discussed there graphically, it is here represented in mathematical terms. That is, we wish to determine x dash from x. What is x? X is the feasible solution. So x contains all solutions. Set of all solution is x. Whereas x dash is, we identify some solutions from the all solution, that is called as x dash, okay. Are you getting? So x dash is some solution from x, and any one point, any individual point, that is called as x dash, small x dash. It is one single individual point from x dash which satisfy all the constraints in MOOP, is called as a feasible solution, okay. Also, we determine from among the set x dash a particular solution x dash star that yield the optimum value of the objective function mathematically. See, let me complete with this. Please listen carefully. Actually, what it says in the sense, see, x is actually the set of all solution. It may be infinite. It may be infinite. We may not be able to identify, or the time or the computational power may not be sufficient. From this, you identify x dash. X dash is actually a subset of x, okay. So but what is x dash? X dash contains x1 dash, x2 dash, x3 dash up to xn dash. What is all these? These are called as x dash. Each x dash, that is each individual in this list, will satisfy all the constraints of MOOP. That is, everything is one possible solution. Everything is one solution which satisfies the constraint of MOOP. Okay, so some you want to maximize, some you want to minimize, all the constraints are satisfied. Now from all these individuals you are selecting one solution, that is called as x dash star. From this you are picking one individual, and that yield the optimal value for the objective function. So you are satisfied with this solution, the solution which you are satisfied, which is an optimal solution. Okay, and that is mathematically represented like this. That is, for all x dash belongs to x dash, this is small x dash, that is individual x dash belong to this capital X dash, there exists an optimal value x dash star, which is also a part of x dash. Okay, and what is that? Fi of x dash star is less than or equal to Fi of x dash. That is, the fitness value of this individual x dash star will be less than the fitness value of all others, because here we want to minimize. Is it clear? So this is how it is mathematically represented. So x dash star is the desirable solution. Okay. So could someone explain this, whatever I have said this? Yes. What is x? What is x? Feasible region. It is all solutions. It may be infinite. Say for example, in the problem of job, if you take the number of students who will be passing out engineering this year, everybody will be x. That will be huge, right? Okay. How many students will be passing engineering this year? Maybe say 10 lakhs or 12 lakhs. So that is x. Okay. So Microsoft want to recruit. From that they will identify x dash. X dash will be, maybe they may pick up all IITians. All IITians will come in x dash. Are you getting? That is x dash. So each individual in x dash is satisfying this criteria, MOOP criteria. What is x dash star? What is x dash star? What is x dash star? Yes. X dash star is the best individual from this. Now this x dash is a limited population, right? From this we can identify the best individual. The best individual from here is called as x dash star. Okay. Actually here we are calling best as the one who is having less fitness score, because we are discussing minimization problem, right? So that here we say Fi of x dash star is less than or equal to Fi of x dash. Okay. Fine. Let us stop here. Okay. Is answer your attendance 32. $79. Lohit. He attended the test without attending any class, but I don't know. 348. So are you responding, Abhinav? 351. Rupesh. Rupesh, are you answering? 269. Bibin. Nobody is in touch with Bibin. Try to inform him. I think he is logging in but not coming. 389. Harish. 200. Kilo. 306. 410. No, I have to mark absent only, right? I think everybody is aware, right? So that attendance only I am considering. I'm not. So this is just for recalling. Anyway, fill it up. So here I am sharing the Google form. Please. So probably this weekend or beginning of next week we'll have test 1. Okay. Fine. Thank you.